It is time to wake up. On this show, we cover the stories the mainstream media won't touch. Live from the Rocky Mountains. Welcome to Redacted with Natalie and Clayton Morris. Are you ready? Let's get uncomfortable.
Well,
you uncomfortable?
Just one'll do.
Welcome in to wake up.
welcome in,
On this
everyone.
show, we cover the stories the mainstream media
I don't know if I
won't
can
touch.
shut that off.
Live from the Rocky
Sorry.
Mountains. Play it again. Welcome to Redacted with
We're still
Natalie
working out our
and
new
Clayton
open.
Morris.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
That's who we are.
Let's get uncomfortable.
All right, everybody. Welcome into Redacted. It's time to get uncomfortable on this Monday, pre-holiday.
I think we said that, did we?
Did we say it?
Yeah.
I think we did.
Pretty sure we did.
Yeah. Anyway, welcome in, everyone. We've got a busy show for you on this Monday. So glad to have you here. The European Union is on its pace to collapse. If you listen to the Trump administration and Elon Musk, who wants to disband the European Union, this all comes in the wake, of course, the massive censorship regime and the Online Digital Securities Act and everything else they're going after Elon Musk about. But I think maybe lost in all this argument here is that President Trump, in his new policy paper, basically says the European Union is going to collapse within 20 years. It will cease to be a civilization. We're going to talk about that on the show today.
Yeah, how's that going to work? Very interesting. Also, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth says that we are going to emulate the Reagan military expansion era. What does that mean exactly? It's a little bit scary. We're going to break it down and parse out his words and sort of remind ourselves what a success the Reagan military was. One of the single largest attacks on U.S. servicemen happened under Reagan. Did you know that? Mm-hmm. Are we doing that again? Because I feel like maybe let's not. But we're going to talk about it.
We're also going to talk about fentanyl. You know, all the focus, of course, on these Venezuelan drug boats. If you listen to like the propagandists and the influencers on X, my gosh, the flood of fentanyl into the United States, it's all coming out of Venezuela. Well, we have a guest on the show today who shows that absolutely that's not the case at all. But actually where it mostly comes from may surprise you. And guess what? Take Mexico out of the mix on this. We're going to show you that a little bit later in the show. Plus, Pearl Harbor. Yesterday, the anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor. It's worth looking at Pearl Harbor as one of the greatest false flag attacks in American history. So we're going to go deep into that. And
you know what? Without even studying, I could go through all four of those stories and basically just yell out CIA. And that's the root of almost all problems here.
True.
You don't. It's like a trump card. It's applicable to every story of corruption that we're about to do. But
I think you're right. I'll be looking at that rundown there. It's like, pretty much.
CIA.
Except, Pearl Harbor, not necessarily, but, still intelligence hidden, of course. But anyway, we're going to talk about all of that. But first,
we want to tell you about our friends over at American Financing because you may be feeling stretched during the holidays. What if you could delay your next two mortgage payments? Well, that would make a difference, right? If you're like me, you've got spreadsheets and lists of who you need to tip, maybe your teachers, the trash man, the recycle. We even have a milkman. We want to, it's getting expensive out there. And if you're feeling stretched, you're not alone. Most Americans are putting their expenses on credit cards, and those interest rates are just insane in the 20s or 30s. But American Financing can show you how to use your home equity to pay off that debt with rates in the low fives. They have salary-based mortgage consultants helping homeowners just like you restructure their loans and save every month, all without upfront fees. And again, this is something wealthy people are never afraid to do, which is leverage their assets. They don't hoard assets or bank accounts or savings accounts. No, they leverage and build, and you can too. American Financing can teach you that. Head on over to americanfinancing.net/redacted, or you can call them 866-890-8434 today. Again, americanfinancing.net/redacted. Their NMLS number is 182334. You can find that at nmlsconsumeraccess.org. APR rates for the 5 start at 6.196 for well-qualified buyers. So get your personal assessment. Call them 866-890-8434 or head on over to americanfinancing.net/redacted. Well, the U.S. military is now being reshaped in the vein of the Reagan era, according to Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. He gave a speech in California over the weekend and laid out this massive military expansion vision. He's calling it peace through strength. Again, that's the sort of common marketing term that all administrations use. My son this weekend was talking about, well, under another administration, probably there wouldn't be waging war. I'm like, honey, this has happened under every administration, at least since Reagan and before. I mean, I only wanted to lay out like what you can list on your hands. So let's go ahead and do that. Here is Secretary Hegseth's romanticizing of the Reagan era military expansion. Watch.
We still talk about the Reagan buildup. And my kids and yours will someday talk about the Trump buildup. President Reagan and his team inherited a military worn down from their generation's endless war in Vietnam. And they took the lessons of that war to heart. This is why he was so deliberate in how he used the joint force.
Okay. Trump buildup, he says. He wants the next generation to romanticize this military expansion. The good old days is what he's hoping he's doing right now. But deliberate. He says that Reagan was very deliberate when he used the military. Okay, let's just review those deliberate military actions. Let's take a look. In Lebanon, this was one of the bloodiest missions that the U.S. military has ever seen. The U.S. attacked Lebanon because Israel wanted to, because they were buds. So we did it. Not only was it a failure, it got 241 service members killed in a single day. The U.S. has never suffered a mass casualty event like that in any mission since. Before that, the deadliest day before that was Iwo Jima. So this is what we're saying was super awesome, these military interventions. Okay. I don't agree with that, but maybe someone can make the point. At the same time was Grenada. The U.S. did this just days after that military barracks bombing, likely to distract from that horrendous event. They made a ground invasion with overwhelming firepower to thwart another Cuba-like Soviet ally. The UN condemned it as an illegal invasion. Let's move on. At the same time, there were wars in Central America, including Iran-Contra, which had the U.S. selling weapons to Iran to fund the drug war. Do we have that one? The next one? Central America. Yes, that one. Thank you. Okay, Iran-Contra, right, which had the U.S. selling weapons to Iran to fund the drug war. Afghanistan was after that, also a part of Reagan's legacy. We armed the Mujahideen, which would eventually become al-Qaeda. So they were someone we were allied with in Afghanistan, and then we made them our enemy when the Bush administration decided to. Now, we should have, from that era, known that it's almost impossible to win a war in Afghanistan with the mountainous regions and the way that the factions are laid out. That didn't teach us anything. We went ahead and did that anyway. Libya. Reagan also ordered strikes on Tripoli and Benghazi, killing dozens, including Gaddafi's young adopted daughter. So I ask you, is this the military record we are being asked to romanticize and worship and then sign off on emulating? Hegseth said that the Reagan years followed the Weinberger Doctrine, which specifies that combat forces are only to be used when the U.S. vital interests are involved. Now, I just threw a long list at you. Did any of those seem like those were U.S. vital interests? Would you like to ring in on that? Those wars I just went over?
Libya, no. Afghanistan, no. Central America, Lebanon, Grenada, no, of course not.
Okay.
No, you forgot, there's
Well,
also
you're saying
Panama.
no.
Yeah, okay, but go ahead.
Right. I did say Central America. So, I mean,
Yeah.
there was a lot, right? This was a very simplistic summary of the Reagan years. So I'm not sure that we want to go back and do that. And who is he selling this to? Joining us to discuss is Ryan Grimm, the co-founder of Dropsite News. You guys are killing it over there with
Thank
your
you.
coverage, breaking down war lie after war lie after war lie. If you're not following Ryan Grimm on X, you are missing out. Thank you for joining us. What do you make of the Secretary's new vision and this emulation of the Reagan era? Are you excited?
Well, the emulation of the Reagan era, you could maybe set that aside. But if you are, let's say, one of the Venezuela war hawks, and you are like, let's say, a Marco Rubio, and you've been positioning U.S. military assets off the coast of Venezuela, you've been making every argument you possibly can inside the administration, for regime change and for installing this Nobel Peace Prize winner as the new head of the government of Venezuela. I think you probably hated this speech. It was such an odd moment to deliver it when, half or more than half of his administration is heavily and publicly, vociferously engaged in the very thing that he says they're not going to do anymore. So that part of it I thought was maybe the most useful in this moment.
Except,
like the rest is kind of theoretical, like the Reagan and like I think what does he know about? He's just I think that's in the realm of just saying stuff.
Right.
But like saying you don't want to do nation building and you don't want to do regime change wars that are not in the American interest. It's like, have you talked to your buddy, the Secretary of State over here?
Right. You know what's going on in Venezuela?
Pretty sure that's what he wants to do.
Right.
And it said so publicly.
Cuba, Colombia, Venezuela, kicking China out. You know, it's it's maybe about the oil, but it's really not. It's about Chinese influence in our hemisphere. That's where So
we just went in and intervened in the election in Honduras. We didn't do it militarily. Just went in with a bunch of threats and successfully swayed the votes. Swung the vote. So I don't know how that fits in either.
When you talk about vital interests, so as Natalie just pointed out, he talks about vital interests, right? And whether it's Latin America or other spots, looking at the Weinberger doctrine, we're not going to intervene, So when he talks about that with Grenada, Central America, anything during the Reagan years, do those rise to the level of any sort of vital national interest? Like what is Libya? How is Libya troubling us? How is Lebanon troubling us in the 1980s?
A side point here, but what I've heard is that inside the White House, whenever they're getting to the cusp of getting Trump to agree to some type of regime change operation in Venezuela, he will bring up Libya, and he'll be like, "Okay, how do you not make this like Libya?" And and they don't have a good answer for that, and that must be such an odd moment, for the kind of blob type foreign policy folks who are like, "Wait a minute. You think Libya was bad?"
Right.
It's like, I mean,
their brain doesn't work that way.
Right. Like 99% of people in the world would look at Libya, and to Trump's credit, he's a normal person and he's as unique as they come as a figure. But when it comes to like normal ideas like that, he's like, yeah, that was bad. Broke the country up. It's a giant mess. It's violent. It's still at war. You can't go there. It's bad. So he agrees with the public on that one. But in Washington, they're like, Libya, that was fine.
Yeah, that was fine. They were moving towards energy independence, sort of, in many ways doing our bidding. We're happy to sort of give up any kind of nuclear program, whatever. But no, we can't have you have nuclear energy independence. We'll just break up your country and then, bayonet you, in the rear end and kill your leaders. That's what we'll do.
But I want to ask you this, because Trump gave the speech in the Middle East and in Saudi Arabia earlier this year and said something very similar. We're not interested in regime change. We're going to mind our own business. Eyes are on our own paper. But then time after time, that's not what we're doing. Mm-hmm. So what do we make of the fact that these platitudes are encouraging, but the actions are antithetical to what they're telling us?
Well, it's always been that way. There's never really been a matchup between, American rhetoric and American foreign policy. I think we just get different kinds of mismatches throughout the years. The thing that they seem to be doing now is redefining what we mean by America when we say America first. Like people like Hegseth have been clear that they consider America to include the Americas. Everything in North America, everything in Central America, and everything in South America. Like, so even as people like Hegseth acknowledge that U.S. full on hegemony is it if not over, at least the end. You can see the end from here. What they're going to do is retrench back to the Americas, and they'll try to call that America first. We'll see if their base goes along with that definition of it, because ironically it's the American intervention in all of these other countries that has produced the migrant crisis that they hate so much. And Venezuela in particular, like Venezuela is like, they're the ones that were, Tren de Aragua, they're taking over the apartment buildings and Colorado, they're the gangsters. So the idea that you're going to then make it a worse place for people to live, probably clashes with, the kind of impulses of the base, but we'll see how much that matters.
So he's sort of quietly admitting something here too. Whenever I hear someone like praising the Reagan era, it's a lot of arming of the people that we now fight 20 years later, right? It's the it's the Mujahideen, right, in Afghanistan. It's let's create
Gaddafi.
Yeah. Let's create Al Qaeda. You know, whatever. I mean, it's like 20 years later, we're going to be fighting these people.
Well, that's what we're doing in Syria.
Right. So when I hear this, like when we're looking at what's going on right now with the arming of a lot of these through the CIA facilitation of arming these individuals in Venezuela and Colombia. I mean, the CIA is intimately involved in this. We know that now. We're calling it out. But 20 years from now, we're going to probably look back on and be like, hey, we were there setting this all up again, just like the Mujahideen.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. And I think that hearkening to the Reagan era might also be a way of, it's kind of a compromise with one of the major kind of pieces of the American political economy, the military-industrial complex, to say, like, look at the Reagan era. You know, peace through strength doesn't have to mean, and they're calling the NDAA, like that's their slogan, peace through strength, doesn't have to mean that we don't keep shoveling money to Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and all the other weapons makers. Like when we say America first, don't worry. We're still going to fund all of the different weapons purchases and everything else that makes up this $1 trillion annual budget. And because Reagan did that, and we're going to do that. But we'll just, not do, long-term occupations, perhaps.
Right.
But that's
fund it all. Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at what is in the next budget, which Marjorie Taylor Greene says she will vote against because it does, in fact, facilitate forever wars. $400 million for Ukraine, $500 million for Israeli missile defense, $80 million for anti-U.S. anti-tunnel cooperation. I mean, it's just the list goes on and on. $357 million for the government of Iraq, Syrian militia, Kurdish, Lebanon. It's ridiculous. So obviously this speech about military expansion comes at an opportune time when he wants to pass this budget, right?
Right. So trust us. We're not going to do the things you don't like, but we do need this money, and but we promise it won't be for those terrible things like nation building. But you're right. Like then it clashes with, aren't you trying to do that in Venezuela? Like right now, as we speak, and aren't you like building a whole crypto nation on the beaches of Gaza? Like, isn't that your whole? You're trying to like take that over and give it to the Ellisons or whoever, and turn that thing into like. So there, I think you're at. I mean, I think the American people's trust in these adventures is generally pretty low, except in rare moments. But it's at a pretty low point right now. I think there are probably enough Republicans retiring that they can ram this through that way.
Okay. So these people don't have to worry about the recourse later in their own districts.
Right. They have different constituencies that they'll be reporting to in their retirement.
Right.
And their voters back home.
Exactly. I want to ask you about
report to God.
Well, these tough questions that you're asking that we're talking about here are the kinds of questions that I don't think we're going to start to see in the press room at the Pentagon anymore. Obviously, we've gone through, this is something you've been covering deeply, which is what's happening in the press room now at the Pentagon. And now you've got like a lot of, different social media influencers, and I'm not saying like they're all bad or anything like that, but I'm just saying it seems like we're in a weird new era now with Pentagon reporting, or at least trying to get some answers. Not that the last crew was good. I'm not like praising CNN or NBC or any of these other clowns either, but what's going on there?
Right. What makes me angriest about it is that they make me defend the old guard.
Like, right. Like,
who were awful.
Oh my God.
It's like, how are you making me miss those guys? But this started, if you look at the timeline, right after that September 2nd strike. So there's this strike, and then there was that later strike where they apparently ordered all the video of it to be destroyed, and then you got the two guys hanging off the boat, and they get according to Hegseth, Bradley orders them to be killed, which is just amazing how Hegseth just keeps repeating that it was Bradley that gave the order, but he totally supports that order that guy gave. He's right over there, Bradley. He's the one that did it, not me. But I totally support it, 100%. But go get him. So right after that is when all of this starts to happen. This like we don't want the press hanging around outside of the secretary's office anymore. We don't want them to be able to talk to anybody who they're not authorized to speak to. They can speak to the spokesperson when the spokesperson wants to speak with them. Because we saw that one of the complaints from the spokesperson was that at all hours of the day, reporters were knocking on her office door and then coming in and asking questions. And they're like, this has to stop. Like, that was literally one of their chief complaints about the previous press corps, that they would knock on literally the press secretary's door and then ask her questions. And so it was right at this time that they begin to cover up this second strike scandal, that they then create these new conditions and require the journalists to sign them. And just journalists in general just are never signing conditions like that. They're just not going to do it. Like, if you're going to cover the convention and they say you can't go past locked doors, it's okay. All right, fine. Maybe I'll sign that. But like, signing away who you're allowed to speak to,
right?
Never.
This is what we criticize. North Korea or China, or heck, try to cover Russia or say that this is what Russia is doing or something like that. So, but we're doing it inside of our own Pentagon. Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess we'll see how this unfolds. Like, not to say that they're all bad. I mean, there's some good people in that room, of course.
And maybe they'll turn great. Maybe these will be like the Woodward and Bernsteins of our day, and maybe this bullying will kind of inspire them to prove us all wrong and go break the rules and break some news. Talk to people you're not supposed to talk to, get the secrets and publish them.
Well, I hope they're not like Bob Woodward, though, because then that would mean you were a CIA asset, and then that means
the old one.
You're, yeah, exactly.
And maybe the one at the time. Who knows?
Yeah. Ryan, great to see you. Thank you so much for this. Really appreciate you helping us break this down. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and subscribe to their newsletter. Dropsite News has a great newsletter as well. So follow them. We really appreciate you.
Thanks, Ryan.
See you later.
All right. Coming up, we're going to talk about how Elon Musk is calling for an end to the European Union. Look, you got a point, dude. The European Union makes everybody's life worse. But how can we really make this work? We're going to talk to Ralph Scholhammer, who is in Europe, who's going to tell us whether or not this is a feasible idea, or will it just be a slow march to decline as it has been. We're going to talk about that in a second. But first,
the Visigoths are already at the gates. All right. But first, to tell you about our friends over at Soul. Soul makes an incredible crop of products that I want you guys to try out, because I'm telling you what, if you guys during the holidays, everyone kind of maybe drinks too much or whatever. What if you just want to kick back and enjoy your evening without having any kind of hangovers or anything like that? Well, that's where Soul comes in with their out of office products. They've got their gummies, of course, but they also have their out-of-office drinks. So you can enjoy one of their out-of-office drinks, which are fantastic, like the raspberry. They've also got a cucumber melon, which is fantastic and delicious and will not give you any kind of hangover. There's their cucumber melon right there on the screen. It's a sparkling THC drink. And I'm telling you, if you want to slow down, actually relax, reach out for some Soul's out-of-office gummies or their out-of-office drinks. The perfect balance of CBD and THC can help you find a nice calm and peace of mind. They're hemp-derived THC and CBD products designed to boost your mood, help you unwind. They have 5 different strengths, too. You can tailor the dose to fit your vibe when you get their gummies, too, from a gentle 1.5 milligram dose to their 15 milligrams, whatever you like. And if you like their out-of-office gummies, try out their new out-of-office beverages, refreshing, alcohol-free alternative, perfect for winding down on the couch or socializing with friends. So bring on the holiday cheer and treat yourself or someone you love to Soul this season. Right now, Soul is offering our audience 30% off your entire order. Go to getsoul.com, use the code redacted. That's getsoul.com, promo code redacted for 30% off.
Well, Elon Musk is calling for an end to the European Union. He was tweeting about that a lot over the weekend. Here is just one example. The EU should be abolished and sovereignty returned to individual countries so that governments can better represent their people. Now, this little BS community note that you see there, It says each member state is sovereign. It feels like a joke.
That's hilarious.
I mean, I am a community note voter, but I can't put them in myself. I don't have that clout yet. And I voted those down. I was like, live in Europe before you actually say that each.
Yeah, you mean to tell me that the Portuguese can do whatever they want without having to call Mother Brussels to get an approval on this, or Spain, or any of these? Give me a break.
No, the Portuguese put into place a program where you could come into their country, as a non-habitual tax resident, and Brussels got really irked about it, and they had to increase the rules for that. No, they cannot do what they want. I could speak a blue streak about the way that each EU state is not sovereign, but that's not the point of this. The point is whether or not Elon Musk can actually inspire some kind of revolution that is good for the people of Europe. Because, of course, the EU makes life worse for every European citizen that's not part of the elite. But is this the hero we want, right? Elon Musk, the last time he said truth bombs about politics, we all got burned, right? And so does the EU then have to do this for themselves? Do they have an Elon Musk character? If they do, we wouldn't know about it because they're busy censoring that person. The context for this is that the European Union is trying to slap this major fine on X under the Digital Services Act. They allege that X failed to comply with their safety provisions. Of course, this is not about safety. This is about censorship. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance said as much on X. But again, what can the people of Europe actually do? Joining us to discuss is one of those people, Ralph Scholhammer, host of the Hammer Time show on YouTube, a real European, maybe not an Elon Musk character, but someone who has been calling for a similar revolution. So what do you make of this, Ralph? Is this a revolution you want to follow?
Well, it's been a while that somebody called me one of those people, so I'm not entirely sure what to make.
You are of the working class in Europe. You're of the people.
She was just profiling you, Ralph. I don't know if you caught that.
No, as you can tell, I put on my white collar shirt, so I'm already rising up through the ranks. No, but on a more serious note, yes, I think this was a quite interesting week because the fine against X and Elon Musk's tweets coincided, which I'm sure that many of you have read, with the new national security strategy that was published by the White House.
Yes.
And I would say that the tone vis-a-vis Europe is one of you either grow a spine or will drop you. And what I find most remarkable is, and I think this triggered everybody in Brussels, that it said that the US government, I'm paraphrasing here, that the US government will support patriotic movements in Europe. So basically right-wing movements. And I think the first step of the revolution you mentioned, Natalie, hopefully will take place at the voting booth. European people have increasingly voted for reform-oriented and revolutionary parties. Revolution is the wrong term, but let's say more revolutionary parties. You have Reform in the UK, where I think the name gives it away. You have the Freedom Party in Austria. You have the AfD in Germany. So something is afoot. But the fun part is, what I really enjoy, is that this is for the first time that a US administration is openly siding with the opposition in Europe. Ironically, and I'm being a little bit facetious here, you remember when back in the day during Barack Obama's presidency, we had all these color revolutions in Eastern Europe and they were cheered on by the Europeans and the US administration. I think a little bit what Trump and Vance are trying to do is to have a color revolution light in Europe and saying we can no longer work with the people in charge. We need to support potential alternatives. And I think that's a step in the right direction.
But you bring up what Trump, I thought it was unprecedented. And I frankly didn't think that it got very much coverage at all. Maybe you could blame the Thanksgiving holiday on this. But what Trump's new policy is an extension of the Monroe Doctrine. They're calling it the Trump Corollary. And they spelled it out. And in that document basically says that Europe civilizationally has 20 years left before it collapses. I mean, they're specifically saying China, Russia, and the United States. Those are the three players. Europe, you're kind of done. You're kind of done. Your globalist policies, your liberal globalist policies have essentially destroyed your continent. No, I thought it was actually pretty stunning.
No, I think it's about 29 pages, so it's a very brisk read. It's a remarkable document. Exactly what you say. It openly says, and I think that 20 years is quite generous. I would say we are in the last inning. We have 5 to 10 years left at best. One huge issue that they mention, and that is correct, and Europeans, the people of Europe, or Western Europe to be more precise, have been saying this now for almost 30 years, that mass migration has to stop. It has altered the character of nations that still exist as a continuity, on a map, on a globe, but the character of those nations has been altered beyond recognition. When you look at the cities, when you look at at what's going on in schools, what's going on in public spaces, you have no-go areas in Sweden. You have bomb attacks in Stockholm. Recently, there was a case now just a few days ago in London where a girl was raped by 2 asylum seekers. Where the what do you call it? The general attorney said that they cannot publish the material because if people would see it, they recorded it with their cell phones, there would be public riots. So this is something that the people of Europe have been complaining about for a long time. But for the most part, American politicians sided with those who are responsible for it. And Trump and Vance are the first ones who say, no, we bet on the wrong horse for the last 30 years, and now we're going to do something different. And I think it is a step in the right direction. The change will be painful, it will be difficult, but at least now there is a debate and a conversation about it. Finally, people are openly saying, man, I think we did a lot of things wrong over the last 20 years, because you couldn't say this, as Natalie correctly pointed out, because you were immediately framed as a Nazi and a fascist, and you had, as in Germany, right, the police would knock at your door at 8 a.m. and they wouldn't arrest you, so that's the thing, but they would confiscate your cell phone for 10 days or for 2 months, and they would confiscate your laptop, right, and the banks would debank you, as it happened to Martin Sellner and others. So I'm glad that finally some light is being shined on what's going on.
Now, you said that you think that Europeans can take control through elections, but they don't elect the European Union leaders. They only elect their own leaders, and those leaders are under the thumb of Ursula von der Leyen, who refuses to withdraw power. So if these new politicians refuse to invoke Article 50, which is the Brexit path, we're leaving the European Union, this is not good for us, we're going to go it alone, we don't want to be saddled with your debt. If they refuse that, then what does this slow march to decline look like? And what will it look like after it implodes? Separate nation states once again?
Well, I know, and this is no disrespect, so please don't misunderstand me. I know that the Americans tend to be, let's say, more inclined, more positively inclined towards revolutions, because your revolution was quite a success. So we have a very positive memory of it. In Europe, if you look at the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, and other revolutions, usually, or at least very often, what happened after the revolution turned out to be worse than what was going on before the revolution. And even the most right-wing, or let's say the right-wing parties that really have a shot of coming into power or are in power, like Viktor Orban in Hungary, for example, they talk about reforming the European Union, giving back more responsibilities to the nation states, strengthening sovereignty, but really completely dissolving the European Union is not in anybody's program. I mean, there are some French parties, don't get me wrong, but the main right-wing parties, with the exception of Reform UK, are not necessarily calling for the dissolution of the European Union. And as you saw, that's a very important point. Brexit is a great example that even if you leave the European Union, if your leaders, if your political elites have the EU mindset, it doesn't matter if you're part of the EU or not. So
no, that's not a success. Yeah.
Right. So I'd rather have a reform. I mean, I'm open for everything, but I'd rather have a reformed EU where really the people who think like I do, like you do, who are patriotic, who understand that it is good for small nations to cooperate on some issues, but it's also necessary to have sovereignty and your own individual paths on other issues. If they form, let's call it a kind of, you can call it a league of Europeans, whatever you want to call it. But I think the complete dissolution, we are not there yet. But as always, anything can happen.
Well, and it needs to be rebuilt on democratic principles, and it's gotten so far away, of course, from free speech, the idea of, and I mean, Germany just, I think this past week, if I'm not mistaken, passed a new law basically allowing police to install spyware inside of private homes. Like, can just go in, install spyware inside of your home. We're not talking about your browser, your internet browser, but like in buildings. So, we're moving way, way far away from democratic principles in Europe. It needs to be rebuilt from the ground up, right?
But as you said, I'm very glad you mentioned this. I mean, this is all Berlin's doing. Like this is, and I have no patience for what's going on in Brussels. But the very example, which is an important one that you just mentioned, this is coming from Berlin. It was I think on 60 Minutes. People can Google it and they find it. They were doing interviews with the German prosecutors for hate speech and hate crimes and all these things. And they talked to 2 or 3 of those prosecutors, and they openly said, very often people don't get punished because, these paragraphs about hate speech are very tricky, but they get blackmailed. They got, as I said, they get their phones confiscated. So the state is punishing them. The process becomes the punishment. So they drag you through court. It costs you money. You get socially ostracized and all these things. And this is the kind of censorship we have in Europe now. It increasingly gets like it, but it's not like the heavy-handed censorship where somebody says, you cannot say this. It is more like, oh, you can say this, but then the police will visit you, will confiscate your phone. We supervise or we monitor your internet traffic, all these kind of things. But this is very often coming from states like Germany who do it individually. Then Brussels jumps on the bandwagon. That's absolutely true. But this is my worry when we say, okay, if Germany would leave the EU, or take the better example, take Great Britain, freedom of speech, freedom of consciousness is in a horrible condition in the UK, but they're no longer part of the European Union. So sometimes I feel that the politicians that do evil things then just use Brussels as an excuse, but very often they are the ones responsible.
Okay, so your final thoughts on Elon Musk and his sentiment, given that he is not a citizen of the EU, he's not a resident of the EU, he's just pontificating from across the pond. Is that welcomed? What do you think? What's your reaction to it?
What everyone thinks about Elon Musk, he did something that was unimaginable just a couple of years ago, and I think he had huge influence, at least in this area, on the current US administration, which is that so-called fringe parties and far-right parties, and again, I say so-called far-right parties, he made them acceptable. Right, you can now talk to the AfD, you can talk to the FPÖ in Austria, you can talk to Nigel Farage's reform, and there's the true sense that, wait a moment, we actually do have a choice, that we have been gaslit into believing that you can always only vote for the same people, the same parties, the same programs that are responsible for decline. And I think in this respect, he did a wonderful job. We have also to admit, you know this better than I do, that of course, as the song goes by Johnny Cash, I fought the law and the law won. I think in the case of Elon Musk, he fought the deep state and the deep state won, because I think the reforms he wanted to accomplish in the US, Doge and all of this, I'm not saying it had no effect, but it was not the kind of reform I think that he himself was aiming for.
No, and a lot of it got USAID and other things were rolled into the State Department under Marco Rubio, so it's not exactly...
And that's, if you allow me a last point, and this is the problem, right? I mean, in the same in Europe, if you have a bureaucratic behemoth being built up over 50, 60 years, and then say, okay, we got to tear it all down and rebuild it in 2-3 years. I mean, this is something that is so difficult. So I know many people are dissatisfied with Trump and all that, and I understand it. But we should always keep in mind that the task he set out to accomplish is a truly Herculean task, to reverse many of the wrong-headed policies of decades. And he hasn't even been in office for a year. I think we should give him a little bit more time and cut him some slack. If I as a foreigner, I'm allowed to pontificate on what's going on your side of the Atlantic.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this policy paper was huge, and I think you're putting it down, and it's not like something he said off the cuff, like on Air Force One. Yeah. Like he's, a reporter just asked him. It's in a policy paper that he believes Europe is dead in 20 years. Like, I'm still kind of shocked by it, but yeah, we'll be watching. Ralph, always great to see you. Ralph Schulhammer joining us.
Thank you so much
from Austria today. Thank you as always. Great to see you, Ralph.
Thanks.
So I just want to.
I'm so sorry.
Well, you try.
We don't want to piss the crickets off. You know what I mean?
Fact checked in real time.
That's true, but I am always.
Can we censor this?
Yeah, we'll edit it out in post.
Well, something that I always think when Ralph talks, like he's got such a command of English idioms, and it's not his first language. I could not do this, even in Portuguese or in Spanish. Like the sayings that you're able to use. So sometimes you're gonna get wrong. I'm
gonna find. I'm sure that there must be a cover version of Johnny Cash or something. So I have to redeem myself somehow.
I'll dig in deeper.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, guys. Great seeing you. Let's do this again soon.
Thanks, Ralph. Great to see you. I know. I only know like two. I mean, I love Johnny Cash, but I couldn't pull that out.
No, I'm
wonder
more
if you're like
interested in
if you're
how
like a
he
foreigner.
again uses our language so beautifully with like the contextual nature of it.
Well, I wonder if like at Christmas, or, in Austria or something, they give out like a book of American idioms. Like you just like go to page 10. It's like, what is, 3 sheets to the wind. Oh, that means being drunk. And like,
Come hell or high water.
What is a drinking like a drunken sailor? Like, okay, I'm ready to go.
I want some in German, because they, not Germany, he's in Austria, because they have, so many funny ones of like, I don't know, things that Instagram teaches me, like, like fart sniffer. That'll tell you a lot about my algorithm.
Well, I just had to do a quick Google search. And there is a well-known Mandela effect associating Johnny Cash with that song.
Oh, okay.
So
it is the crickets.
Apparently he's not alone. It was the crickets that did it, but Johnny Cash is often associated with that song from my quick Google search, and so can't really blame Ralph.
He is slightly redeemed.
All right. Hey, coming up on the show, our old friend Dan Cohen, great journalist, one of the great journalists in the world from Uncaptured Media, is going to be joining us because so much focus obviously has been on the fentanyl that's coming out of Venezuela. I mean, we've been debunking that for weeks here on the show, but Dan's brought the receipts, and he's going to show us actually where this fentanyl is coming from, and it might shock you, and you probably haven't heard this before, and Dan's going to break it all down for us. But first,
we want to tell you about our sponsors, Superpower. Now, this is a great way to give a gift over the holiday season. What it is a way to monitor your health. It's a way to get your vital signs without being going to your doctor. They're looking for something. You can monitor that stuff yourself. You don't want a doctor to say, this number of cholesterol is too high, you need to be on statins, this is what your blood pressure should be, this is what no, you can monitor this yourself and set goals, and it's a great way to give you a personalized action plan built by clinicians. So if you're gifting this, which we recommend, or getting it for yourself, the membership arrives in this beautiful Superpower gift box. It's normally a $49 add-on, but right now it's free with your gifted membership. It's thoughtful and meaningful. And again, it's about longevity, wanting your family around for a long time, wanting to track your most important vitals without, again, being under the thumb of a doctor who may not have the same health philosophy that you do. So check it out. Go to superpower.com. Again, give your loved ones something that actually lasts, better health with more time with you. Go to superpower.com/gift to get a free $49 premium gift box with your membership. And after you sign up, they'll ask you how you heard about them. Please make sure to put in redacted. And again, if you're signing up for yourself, then use our code TAKE20 at checkout. That's another $20 off your membership at superpower.com. Again, it's superpower.com/gift. If you're getting a gift, it'll come with a gift box. Or for yourself, superpower.com, and use the code TAKE20 for $20 off. Give the gift that nobody ever regrets getting at better health, better metrics, better control of your health. So superpower.com/gift.
Well, if you've been paying attention to the media, the propaganda on social media, if you've been paying attention to the propaganda coming out of the Pentagon over the past couple of months, Venezuela is at the heart of the American drug problem. All of that fentanyl pouring across our border into the United States is coming out of Venezuela, apparently. Well, you know that that's not true at all. In fact, the numbers are pretty dismal. Had Senator Rand Paul, of course, here on the show saying that that is a total farce. But where exactly are these drugs coming from? Well, our next guest, Dan Cohen from Uncaptured Media, has been analyzing a number of reports from U.S. law enforcement specifically and has a startling take on all of this. Dan, welcome back to the show. Great to see you.
Good to be with you. Good to see you too.
All right. So the fentanyl, first of all, maybe the first part of this before we get into where it's actually coming from. I mean, the idea that Venezuela is at the heart of this massive drug trade. What do you say about that in your reporting?
I mean, it's, firstly, it's just absurd. And I think pretty much everybody knows that the whole push is falling flat. This whole looming intervention, war on Venezuela, and these strikes on these little boats in the Caribbean it's wildly unpopular. And most people, I think, see right through it. And, Venezuela has never been associated certainly with fentanyl and much less with drug trafficking at all. Cocaine. I mean, the vast majority of the cocaine, as everyone knows, comes out of Colombia, the U.S. ally for many, many years, and that's basically a result of how the U.S. has engineered the Colombian political economy, and a lot of it is trafficked through Ecuador, which is now a puppet state of the U.S., and also through Peru. So Venezuela, there's negligible amounts of cocaine moving through Venezuela, and it's illicit. The government is not involved in it. The cartel of the Suns is a total fabrication of U.S. intelligence, and so it's a totally false pretext. And I think everyone knows it.
So can you then lay out where you think that some of the drugs are coming from, if we were sincere about stopping that, which, who knows the level of sincerity?
Right. Well, most people, I think if you would ask them, where is fentanyl coming from? I mean, of course, we should say that the opioid crisis has been going on since the late 1990s, since 1999. There are well over 1 million people, mostly young and middle-aged, 15 to 44 years old, have died from opioid overdoses. And the worst period of that was 2020 to 2022, 23. I mean, it skyrocketed under a, I'm using air quotes here, pandemic. And this is all closely related, as I'm going to demonstrate in further investigations. But you can't really understate the severity of the opioid epidemic. I mean, crisis, epidemic, it hardly describes how many people have been killed. So it is really the most pertinent question, I think, in America today. What's happening? It lowered life expectancy, and it needs to be front and center. So this isn't even just about Venezuela. This is about like America as a country. And so most people, if you ask them, they would say China and Mexico. That's the one that Trump talks about. Those are the countries that politicians will talk about. And Trump even put tariffs on China back in, February, March, 10, I think 20% tariffs on China. And he accused the Chinese Communist Party of actively sending and growing its fentanyl production in order to send it to the U.S. He accused the Chinese, the Communist Party of China, of poisoning American citizens. So Trump, knows this very well. But if you actually look at the reports and the history, the timeline of the opioid crisis in the last several years, it really started in 2013, 2014. It became fentanyl. It originally was prescription opioids, OxyContin, in the early days of the opioid crisis. Then it became heroin, and then 2013, fentanyl started to show up. And by 2016, fentanyl was everywhere. And the death rate, the overdose rate, how often people were dying from the overdoses, how deadly they were, skyrocketed. There were a huge increase in opioid deaths. And pretty soon, President Trump, within a couple of years, President Trump had gotten China to agree to crack down on fentanyl manufacturing and trafficking, because it could go through Mexico, but it could also just be purchased online and sent directly through the mail to the United States. So there was fentanyl coming from China at that point. And but China agreed in 2018 to crack down on the production and on the trafficking. And they had a class-wide ban on fentanyl and fentanyl precursors. So the chemicals that are needed to make fentanyl, this drug that's killing Americans, China banned. However, and so you saw, what I show in my piece is you see the best measure I could find was statistics from United States Customs and Border Protection, which reported a 96% decrease in interdictions or interceptions of fentanyl coming from China across the U.S.-Mexico border. So 96% reduction is pretty remarkable. Yeah. Now, at the same time, fentanyl deaths are continuing to increase. So that fentanyl has to be coming from somewhere. Now, at the same time, who starts getting mentioned in U.S. government reports is India. India is picking up the slack. India has a massive pharmaceutical industry, which already supplies something like 40% or more of our generic pharmaceuticals in the United States. And so it's well positioned to pick up that slack where China cracks down, and criminal organizations in China can, instead of sending directly from China to the United States, they can send their product to India and then ship it out. So, the borders aren't, these transnational criminal organizations are not, of course, staying inside, one country, operating from just one country. They'll use whatever combination of borders they need to. So,
if we could just make this distinction, because heroin is grown from opioids in Asia, but India can make fentanyl because it's lab grown. It's a synthetic, right? So anybody could do it. So we can't any longer be like, well, this comes from cocaine.
Poppy fields,
right? The poppy fields or the coca
Precisely.
plants. We're now talking about sort of a phantom manufacturer. So it really could be anywhere. So you're making the point that it can be manufactured in India.
Yes, and India has an incredible pharmaceutical industry. It's also extremely corrupt. It has very weak enforcement, law enforcement. It's, China has a centralized system, so it's easier for them, even though they're a larger economy still, just though India is growing tremendously. India has a centralized system. It's much easier for it to crack down on something like that. China has that centralized system. India does not. So even if India, the thing is, even if they wanted to, they chose not to, because when China took those measures to have a class-wide ban on fentanyl precursors coming into the United States, India did not do that. India banned some of the most common ones, but it is very easy for chemists to sidestep. For producers to sidestep those regulations by just altering the chemical compounds they use and just making fentanyl slightly different. And then you're skirting the regulations. So in my mind, it can't be understood as anything but that's not an accident. That has to be intentional, that they did not do what our supposed adversary did. China, we're told, is the boogeyman, is the bad guy, and India is our closest ally. Tulsi Gabbard in March, when she went to India, she declared to Modi, to President Modi or Prime Minister Modi, that India, the Indo-Pacific, meaning India, is the geopolitical center of the 21st century. Okay, so this is like, you can't really understate how big India is going forward. They have the largest population in the world already. They're outpacing China, which has tremendous population problems going forward. India is going to be the big dog of this century, and the U.S. government knows it. That's why Tulsi Gabbard was there. And they are sending very significant amounts of fentanyl into the country that is still, to this day, killing, according to President Trump, what he blamed China for is 140 overdose deaths every day on fentanyl. And, again, these are working class. This isn't like old people who are about to die. This is, working people with families, and it's actually reduced life expectancy. So go ahead, Clayton.
No, I was just going to say, because what I think you're saying here, and then when you talk about Tulsi Gabbard, what sort of role does like the U.S. strategic partnership have with India in sort of like suppressing and or obscuring all of this? Because it's like, we can't admit that India, our friend, is really the entire driver of fentanyl in the United States. What would that do to our friendship and all of the manufacturing that everything else we're doing there?
Firstly, I can't say absolutely that China or that India is the primary driver. There's still, I'm sure, fentanyl coming from China in illicit ways. It's very hard to crack down on that completely. And the transnational criminal organizations, of which Mexican cartels are involved in too, they are tricky. But and there's no figures on precisely how much is coming in, for one thing, because it's a black market, so it's not tracked at a normal level. But even if you judge by basically these factors that I've laid out, of China cracking down, India increasing its production and appearing in U.S. government, State Department, Drug Enforcement Agency, and U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and UN reports that India is at least a primary, if not the primary provider of fentanyl and fentanyl precursors that make it to the United States, then I think it's clear India, to me, it has to be suspected of being the number one, and it's our very close ally. So if you look at, well, we have an incredible amount of not only people who have been involved in, the India lobby, which is very substantial in this country, and people who are close to pro-Indian business interests and political interests, like Tulsi Gabbard. There is no one who epitomizes that more. As a freshman member of Congress, she was, going to meet with Modi. As she's part of the India caucus. A lot of her donors are pro-India. I mean, she's Hindu. She's very close with Indian interests, and that's been underplayed, I would say, vastly. Okay, you also have Susie Wiles, Trump's chief of staff, who worked as a registered foreign agent for India for 2 years until she joined the Trump administration. You have Mike Waltz, former national security advisor turned UN ambassador, who was the co-chair, I believe, of the India caucus in Congress. You have not only people who are unusually pro-India and close to Indian interests in the United States, but you also have actual Indian nationals, many Indian nationals or first-generation Indian Americans in key positions throughout the government and in appointed and elected positions. Even if we just look at the very top in the Trump administration, of course, you have Tulsi Gabbard and the other ones I mentioned, but you have Jayanta Bhattacharya, who's now the director of the NIH. He was born in India. You have, I have them listed here. You have some of them. You have Ranjit Gill, a guy known as Ricky Gill. I don't know if everyone has ever heard that name, but he doesn't get much attention. He's the senior director for Central and South Asia Affairs at Trump's National Security Council, where he is dealing specifically with the issue of India. His grandfather was a British army officer in India. So that's like an incredible conflict of interest where, imagine if you had a Russian in the U.S. government dictating policy on Ukraine. That would be like, well, maybe you shouldn't be there. Yeah. Right. You have, Kush Desai, White House Deputy Press Secretary, Saurabh Sharma, Special Assistant to the President for Personnel, Sriram Krishnan, the Silicon Valley venture capitalist turned senior White House policy advisor on AI, Anjani Sinha, U.S. ambassador to Singapore. This is just the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg. So what I've found, and I'm going to show this, get deeper into this in further investigations, the India lobby doesn't begin to describe the incredible influence machine that India has established in the United States with the help. It's not like it was opposed at any level, and it's completely bipartisan. And this is going back to 2000, where Silicon Valley, the CEO of Google, the CEO of IBM, just key figures everywhere are Indian nationals. And this isn't racism against Indians. It's just that there has been an incredible appearance of what I would describe as an Indian superclass since 2000. Since 2000, we've seen 70% of Indian migrants have come since 2000. Of course, that issue exploded with the HB1 visas. And so at the same time, you have basically Americans being poisoned, the American working class being poisoned and killed off by our government in cahoots with India. You have huge amounts of Indian workers coming to the United States and,
filling those positions.
Filling those positions, precisely. And now this whole pretext of China, of Venezuela providing fentanyl, which is actually coming from India, the Trump administration wants to use to destroy Venezuela and send a bunch of migrants here to take even more like low-paying jobs, which, a lot of Americans don't want to do anyway. But so there is no way that they don't know, that the Trump administration, that Tulsi Gabbard doesn't know. She actually said it And when she delivered her 2025 threat assessment, I guess to Congress, as the director of national intelligence, she said that fentanyl is coming, this isn't an exact quote, but primarily from China and India. She said it. So you would think if Tulsi Gabbard is a patriotic American and is worried about what should be the number one issue in America of people dying by the hundreds per day, then you would think she needs to look. She would have all of the avenues right there in front of her. She's so close to India, it would be a piece of cake for her. But that didn't come up, as far as I know, when she went for a 3-day trip to India in March. This is the elephant in the room, and it's something that I'm devoting myself to getting into, not only because of issues like foreign policy, but what's happening in our country, where you go to the doctor, they prescribe you some opioids, or I'm sorry, some OxyContin or whatever it is, because you have a little surgery or something, and all of a sudden you're hooked on that stuff, and you are an addict, and oops, you overdose and die. It's not just people, of course, who are making bad decisions and into drugs for recreational reasons and that kind of thing and down and out. It's people who just get sucked in and fall in and die from opioids. And this crisis has completely normalized. And I'm pretty certain it's our top ally, India, that is supplying the poison.
Gosh.
Wow.
Well,
I'm sort of speechless about it, but
yeah.
yeah, I mean, like the other day we were doing a story on Venezuela. We were, and I'll wrap it up now, but last week we were doing a story on Venezuela and hitting these drug boats, and someone in the chat room was like, yeah, but you guys are criticizing this, but you've never had anyone in your family that had died of fentanyl overdose. Well, we know people, of course, that have, but you're looking at the wrong catalyst here. You're looking at Venezuela when you should be looking at China and India. And with the help of the United States, like turning their back on this and facilitating this. And they're lying to the American people about attacking Venezuela over fentanyl coming to the United States when you've got this cushy relationship with India and turning a blind eye to it. So anyway, I just want to say that. But Dan, thank you for this reporting. Did you want to say something else?
Oh, I was going to say follow Dan's reporting on Uncaptured Media. He's got a YouTube channel and a X account, and Uncaptured Media is where you'd find his great work.
Uncaptured.media. He's one of those newfangled URLs.
Yeah.
So uncaptured.media. Dan, great work on this, and keep us posted. Hopefully we'll see if the administration responds to you. Thank you so much, Dan.
Yeah, it was cheaper than uncaptured.com, I think, which was a lot more expensive. But no, I appreciate you two having me on to talk about it. And I should say there are 2 other people on the internet who I know of who are talking about this, and I really can't find it's mind blowing to me that I'm the kind of first journalist, I guess, to sort of be breaking this story open, because it's of tremendous national importance. Think of if 140 people were dying every day in a war, 140 Americans were dying every day in a war, it would be front page news all the time. So it's really blown my mind to kind of start digging into this. But I have to, give a lot of credit to the people who turned me on to this story. A guy named Mark Kulak, who has his own show called Houstonic.its. And I really encourage people to take a look at Mark's work. And also Jonathan J. Cooey, who I know, I've talked about before on this show. He has a channel called Gigaome Biological. He talks about this too. And he's, done a lot of very serious analysis, working this in with COVID-19 and things we'll get into in further future interviews, I hope. But and I know, you two are trying to have Jonathan J. Cooey on, and I hope that happens. So,
on that.
Yeah, I appreciate you two having me on to go after this.
Always. Thank you so much for your great reporting, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. Great to see you, man.
Definitely.
Keep up the great work.
All right, coming up, we're going to talk about, it was December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day over the weekend. Clayton's going to, as always, give you some great historical context on that, because are we missing that we were led into war? Are we missing the narrative on this? Usually the answer is yes. So stay tuned for that. I'm excited to hear it. But first, we want to tell you about our friends at Lear Capital, because we all know the cost of war, not just lives and families shattered, cities leveled, but also war can wipe out your financial future too, it has done that. Since the Biden administration went all in on Ukraine, the value of the dollar plummeted. So your savings account, your stock account, your retirement account, they all went down. We saw that happening. We have lived it. I don't need to tell you. You don't need an economist to explain to you what's happened. Look at the euro. Look at the dollar. That means more inflation, a weaker dollar, your savings value loses every day. This is not a scare tactic. It's a wake-up call. What you should be watching, of course, is the U.S. accelerating debt, the devalued dollar, and what you should see is that gold and silver has been increasing all along in the inverse. Goldman Sachs is already predicting that gold could hit $4,500 an ounce by 2026 because smart money is moving. Central banks, billionaires, they're not waiting. They're protecting themselves with precious metals, and so are we. We have been doing this since as long as you've been watching Redacted. We've been telling you about this. And the value, I think when we started reporting, the value of gold was about $2,300 an ounce. Now look at what it's doing for good reason. This is not a trend, it's a shift. So if you are still confused on where to start, you need to call our friends at Lear Capital. Go to learredacted.com to get your free investor kit, or I always recommend that you just pick up the phone and call them. 800-613-3557 is the number, and literally they just pick up. How can I help you? Open-ended conversation, no question too simple wherever you're starting from. So again, go to learredacted.com. No one's going to protect your money but you. Do it now before the next crisis hits. learredacted.com.
Yeah, and a lot of people in our chat room talking about, well, fentanyl, and a lot of people who've lost loved ones in our chat room to this. So yeah, just unbelievable story.
I was thinking about that point you had brought up that somebody was saying, like, well, you haven't lost somebody to this, but I mean that'd be the equivalent of, like, you know, if like somebody died in a terrorist attack in the United States and the country responsible was Saudi Arabia, so we started bombing Mali, and if we were questioning, like, why are we bombing Mali?
Right.
And then someone was like, well, you didn't lose anybody in that terrorist strike, and it's like, yeah, that's true, but why are we bombing? Like, why are we attacking Venezuela?
Right.
Like,
you can't ask questions about it. Yeah. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You don't know anyone that died of fentanyl, so then therefore we should attack fentanyl. It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, it's horrible. So thanks, Dan, for his reporting on that. Well, long before the greatest false flag attack in American history, which was 9/11, and the controlled demolition of the Twin Towers and Building 7, which were brought down by explosions, not airplanes, which of course got us into the war on terror and then destabilized the entire Middle East, killed millions of people. Of course, there was another massive false flag, that is Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. And I want to focus on the part of the story that no one in Washington, no one in the mainstream media, and certainly no one in your in your high school textbook ever bothered to tell you, that President Franklin Delano Roosevelt saw this attack coming, allowed it to happen, and hid the full picture from the American people, because Pearl Harbor wasn't just Pearl Harbor. On the very same day, within hours, Japan launched coordinated strikes on Guam, Wake Island, Midway, Hong Kong, Malaya, and the Philippines. But Roosevelt, during his address to the nation, made a deliberate choice to tell the American public only about Pearl Harbor. Why? My son asked this question the other day as he was learning about Pearl Harbor in school. Dad, like, why would FDR only tell people about what happened in Hawaii? Because FDR needed one clean cinematic moment to drag a deeply anti-war American population into World War II. Americans were vehemently opposed to joining another war. That's why, by late 1941, Roosevelt was boxed in. America was overwhelmingly opposed to entering another European war. Congress wouldn't declare war. Roosevelt's advisors told him a direct attack was the only thing that could actually politically force the country's hand. In fact, what most people don't even know is that in October of 1940, Commander Arthur H. McCullum sent a memo to two of Roosevelt's most trusted military advisors, and it laid out 8 steps that he said would cause Japan to attack the United States. We only know about this thanks to FOIA requests that brought these documents to light years ago. Now, among these points he makes in this 8-step, you have to read all of these for yourself. They're all available online. I highly encourage you to read these. When I read these a couple of years ago, I was stunned by them. You shouldn't be, though. But among the points that he makes, that if the United States started using British and Dutch bases to help the Chinese, that would be very bad. If we sent heavy cruisers, keep it on this page if you would, Philip, because I want to really highlight the bottom last sentence there. If we sent cruisers near Japan, that would be bad, right? This would all be a catalyst to be attacked by Japan. But the one that stands out the most is to keep the bulk of our U.S. Navy fleet in the Hawaiian Islands like sitting ducks. That would be bad. That would be the perfect catalyst. And boom. So FDR jumped at that idea. What's even more amazing is that the State Department at the time told Americans to get out of the Far East because of the impending conflict. And if you look at the bottom part of that page, it says, if by these means Japan could be led to commit an overt act of war, so much the better. A.H. McCollum writes. That's what's highlighted there in red at the bottom of the page. So admitting that, whoops, well, if they should use any of these as a catalyst, it could be an overt act of war, and what are we going to do about it? Get into war, of course. So what's amazing to me is that FDR almost immediately after this 8-point report came out told State Department employees and other Americans, they were given the heads up, get out of the Far East. Come home now before the shooting starts. So they knew it was coming. While all of this was happening, FDR was, of course, running an undeclared naval war against Germany months before Pearl Harbor. Our ships were escorting British convoys, firing on German submarines, enforcing an Atlantic patrol zone that Churchill openly bragged was meant to drag America into war. So FDR knew these catalysts wouldn't be enough to flip public opinion. We needed something bigger, grander. Enter Pearl Harbor. So FDR shifted focus to Japan, a country whose oil supply he'd intentionally strangled through embargoes, knowing it was only a matter of time before Japan lashed out. And following McCollum's 8-point plan, it was a perfect tempest in a teapot, right? But for FDR, though, he had something else. American intelligence had cracked parts of Japan's diplomatic codes. We were reading messages warning that negotiations were breaking down and that Japan was preparing for action, preparing to attack. FDR knew something was coming, and instead of raising alarms at Pearl Harbor, he did the exact opposite. Instead of keeping Americans' fleet safe and secure in San Diego, he moved the Pacific Fleet to Hawaii. Against the advice of nearly every admiral who had his ear, Admiral James Richardson, of course, protested. FDR essentially fired him. In fact, radar installations in Hawaii were underfunded, undermanned, all very convenient. And of course, they were often just totally ignored. The famous radar warning on the morning of December 7th was dismissed as probably American bombers, so just ignore them. Probably just American bombers. Not only were American ships bottlenecked inside of Hawaii as like a perfect sitting ducks, so too were Pearl Harbor's aircraft. They were lined up wing to wing on airfields, which were perfect targets. Commanders were ordered to bunch planes close together to guard against what they said would be sabotage, not an attack. So you'd bunch them close together to prevent sabotage, but it was a perfect sitting duck for an attack. Look at these planes, side by side by side, wingtip to wingtip. Commanders at Pearl Harbor, particularly Lieutenant General Walter Short, ordered the planes to be put wing to wing. Why would they do that? When we know FDR's War Department had already intercepted Japan's 14-part message that signaled they were going to come and bomb Hawaii. So we already knew what their intentions were. So instead of preparing for it, we did the opposite. We just went to sleep. It was meant for the attack to be as big and as impressive as possible, right? So FDR could enter this war. And here's the part that always gets edited out of like the classroom version of this. Pearl Harbor was not an isolated attack. It was a coordinated sort of empire-wide operation across the Pacific. Japan struck the Philippines, Guam, Wake Island, Hong Kong, Malaya, British Borneo, Midway. And here's what Roosevelt did. He ignored every one of them in his address to Congress on December 8th. He framed the war as Pearl Harbor and Pearl Harbor alone. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, in his original speech draft, it mentioned the Philippines, it mentioned Guam, and those were crossed out in favor of this. Watch.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, in infamy, the United States of America was violent of the Empire of Japan. The United States was at peace with that nation, and at the solicitation of Japan, was still in conversation with its government and its emperor, looking toward the maintenance of peace in the Pacific.
Sure. Of course, that was one big lie. If he told Americans that Guam and the Philippines were falling at the same time that Pearl Harbor was burning, the public might ask, hey, wait, why weren't we warned by this? Why weren't those islands reinforced? Why were our men abandoned? All of that. Roosevelt couldn't risk those questions. Oh, it was a big, broader attack? No, it was just about us. It was just about Pearl Harbor. So he sanitized the story. Pearl Harbor became the chosen trauma. Everything else was buried, of course, but Americans were struck, killed, or wounded in those other areas, including Natalie's own grandfather, who was stationed from Hawaii into the Philippines at the time. Here he is. Looks a lot like her, doesn't it? He was hit by Japanese torpedoes. He even received a card as a torpedoed seaman, showing the identification of being torpedoed by the Japanese in the Philippines. But of course, this was kept from the Americans because Roosevelt got what he needed. And also, Natalie's grandmother was on Pearl Harbor, worked at the base. And she was a nurse, separate from that facility at the time of the bombing. So Americans were used as cannon fodder at the time. So what Roosevelt needed, of course, was a united country, a mobilized military, and a war declaration that Congress would never have passed otherwise. But the cost was thousands of American lives, many of which could have been saved. And that's not, of course, at all to denigrate those brave men and women who died that day and who fought bravely on Pearl Harbor. They didn't know what their government had put them up to. They were there trying to defend and save those ships, save those aircraft, save their fallen brothers who were hit by the Japanese. But they were being used as cannon fodder by a government who wanted us desperately to enter World War II. And of course, then our country never was the same since. And false flags have become very, very important to the United States. Of course, this is just one of many. But I don't think Pearl Harbor gets the attention it deserves when you have big false flags like 9/11, and you have the USS Liberty and other major attacks on the United States. But arguably, this is probably the biggest of all up until 9/11. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments below. And thank you so much for subscribing and being a part of our community here. I really appreciate it. So what does the chat room think about Pearl Harbor? Are there any little pieces of that story that I didn't want to go on for an hour and a half with it, but
if it's any consolation, I would have watched for an hour and a half.
Appreciate it.
That's an interesting story to me.
Arnis says, please tell me it's not true. It is true. Yeah. David Lang, Operation Gladio 2.0. Craig Olson says the first casualty in war is always the truth. Yeah. And and I should point out, it was not Natalie's grandmother. It was Natalie's aunt, his grandfather's sister, who worked as a nurse at Pearl Harbor. But, it happened at 7 in the morning on a Sunday. So a lot of them were up partying kind of the night before. There was no push to hey, curtail your drinking because we're about to be attacked by the Japanese, to be on guard. No, just, have fun tonight. Because it might be your last night, I guess, of drinking before you're bombed at 7 in the morning on a Sunday. Go ahead, Philip.
I was going to say, if you go back and watch the video Natalie did, I believe over the summer on this topic, she mentioned that her aunt had actually been out partying the night before and was hungover and overslept, and that's why she was not involved in the attack on Pearl Harbor. Yeah. That's probably what saved her life.
Exactly. She among many. Because there was a lot of partying in those days and those nights on a Saturday night. And so, again, there were a lot of them hungover, 7 in the morning on a Sunday. And that's when those first Japanese Zeros came into the sky. It's crazy. Yeah, as someone in their chat room, Barry says, yeah, the lights were blinking red at least. Yeah, And of course, then you've got admirals saying, no, Mr. President, don't put our fleet, we didn't have enough ships to begin with. So you're going to put like a huge portion of our Pacific fleet like in this bottleneck in Pearl Harbor as like sitting ducks? Like, why would you do that? Fired for bringing that up. You can't do that. But I was always so struck about the propaganda of it. Because like when my son asked me last week about this, he's like, why would FDR like leave out that all these other areas had gotten attacked? And I said, well, think about it, right? It's if the Germans kind of firing on U.S. ships, escorting British ships, up through the English Channel and otherwise wasn't enough for us to be rallied around something, right? Like, remember the Maine, Spanish-American War. Then we needed something larger. And what's larger than that is, an entire area, an entire harbor, an entire military installation being attacked. And all of these ships being blown up and aircraft being blown up. So you don't mention the Philippines. You don't mention that this was like part of a larger operation and we were just one of a few. Like their intentions were not just about us, it was other areas as well. Then it kind of waters everything down.
It was a threat that was creeping towards us. And so it would make absolutely no sense if we knew that threat was coming to then bottleneck all of our Navy in one place. They'd be out in sort of a defensive posture because if it was coming towards us. So that's like, you just couldn't let that be known. You
wouldn't even be anywhere near there because they didn't have the ability to hit us really in San Diego or on the coastal United States, right? So if you would have moved the fleet, so that, this is the whole thing with like the Doolittle raid. So we were, the idea was we need to strike back. We need to hit Tokyo. We couldn't really do anything. So we had to figure out a way to like fly off of aircraft carriers in the Doolittle raid and try to attack Tokyo at the time. And we barely could make it. A lot of it was like a suicide mission, like in those, to fly off those aircraft out in the Pacific and try to fly over Tokyo and drop bombs and then try to return to that aircraft carrier. Like we just didn't have the flight capacity to get that far. So, if we would have moved the Pacific Fleet out of striking distance, they wouldn't have had the aircraft and the fuel to even be able to do it. There was no mid-air refueling. There wasn't like some big craft that's flying down and hooking up and refueling these aircraft. So it was intentional. Like you move most of your Pacific Fleet to be attacked and destroyed. And then, of course, the military-industrial complex leapt into battle. And now it's a massive $1 trillion a year, massive military-industrial complex. America lost its innocence. It's really, really tragic. And to think that those, you think, because you're raised by thinking like, oh, the people at Pearl Harbor, there was just a total sneak attack and no one knew about it. These poor people get killed. So these veterans who go to Pearl Harbor every year to honor the fallen, and to think that like those men were just cannon fodder. They were put out there to be killed as part of it. It's just horrifying. But, you don't put it past our government. You don't trust our government at all. And what they did on 9/11 is just an extension of that on a much bigger and grander scale, of course. Intentionally blowing up those buildings and bringing those things down and blaming it on Muslim terrorists. Sure. Right. We're not idiots around here, but they think you are. They think you are, and that's why they try to suppress our show. So thank you guys for subscribing and, doing whatever you can to share the show in any kind of way because they actively suppress the show. And they do it around the world. So thank you for that. Thank you for supporting us. Hey, we'll take some super chats here. Did you guys know, though, but first, that the U.S. life expectancy peaked at 78 years back in 2014? It's been going down ever since. And as Dan Cohen just mentioned a few minutes ago, like so many environmental hazards, but fentanyl lowering the life expectancy in the United States. It's dropped for the first time in 30 years because people are aging faster than ever before. This is due to more toxins in the air, chemicals in our soil and food, and other external factors that, of course, are really new to us. What most people don't understand is we can actually fight this at the cellular level. Take a look at this new anti-aging study out, which shows that anti-aging effects and mechanisms of kimchi during fermentation under stress-induced premature Sensine cellular system. Scientists discovered now that kimchi actually slows the aging process of human cells, helping to protect them and delay against aging at the cellular level. The power of nature can outweigh the power of pharmaceuticals without nasty side effects. And now you can get all the benefits of getting all those microplastics out of your body because your body You eat like a whole credit card's worth of microplastics on a regular basis. It's crazy. Now you can get all of it. The benefits of kimchi in one simple capsule with Kimchi 1. Each capsule delivers over 900 probiotic strains, plus antioxidants and enzymes that support your digestion. So you get 25% off with that code redacted. If you go to mybrightcore.com/redacted, you'll get 25% off. But the best thing is if you give them a call and get on the phone with them. They're an American company, and they'll give you 50% off plus free shipping. If you call them, 888-404-6312, up to 50% off and free shipping. Best of all, Kimchi 1 is 100% made in the United States, all natural, non-GMO. Support your gut, protect your cells, feel younger every day. I take two capsules every morning with my morning supplements, with my vitamin D, my vitamin D3 and K and all of that other stuff. But this is arguably the most important one that I take every day, my two capsules of Kimchi 1. And I also still eat kimchi a lot too, regular kimchi, but a lot of people don't like the taste of it, That's the benefit of Kimchi 1, because you don't have to deal with the taste. mybrightcore.com/redacted. Get 25% off with that code redacted, or call them 1-888-404-6312 to get 50% off and free shipping. So thanks to My Brightcore for helping us on this show. Appreciate it. Someone said in Korea they eat a lot of kimchi. Yes, they do. It's like a staple of their diet.
Same with Thailand, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I might be responsible for. I was going to say I might be responsible for at least a quarter of all the kimchi consumption in the United States.
Yeah, next time, Philip, whatever brand you're going to get, let me know so I can buy some stocks.
Yeah, Philip, he buys like jugs of it a day. Like it's crazy. You and your daughter.
Yeah,
but it's good training on them. It's good training on them.
Insider trading. Philip, what brand are you going to go buy now? And let's all go buy some stock.
I think it's called Seoul Kitchen, and they have a spicy kimchi and they have a daikon radish kimchi, and it's usually found in the refrigerated section of the produce at my grocery store, like where they have all the fermented and kind of like, not the canned pickles, but the good stuff.
Kirby in our chat says, please don't ask Philip about his kimchi habit again. Thank you, Kirby. No, but we go to the Korean barbecue place, and they bring out the little metal dishes filled with all kinds of different kimchi. It's really delicious.
Yeah, well, they'll call it a problem because Philip's eating so much, and next thing you know, they'll be bombing kimchi boats.
That's probably true. Yeah. Oh, boy. What a week. What a crazy week that's been going on in news right now. I mean, we're watching.
What was that show? What a week I'm having.
What a week.
What was that?
Oh, that was from
a movie?
That was in Mermaid. Remember when
oh yeah.
What's his name?
Tom Hanks.
No, the other guy, not Tom Hanks, Eugene Levy.
But that's the movie, right?
Yeah, yeah. But he's wearing like the horse collar. Splash. What did I say?
Mermaid.
Yeah, sorry. He's got the horse collar on and his teeth are all busted up, and he's like, "What a week I'm having." He just keeps getting beat up. Eugene Levy's great.
That's a great movie.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so we should mention, hey, by the way, the two brothers, David, say hi, David.
Hello.
David's birthday is today. Mm-hmm. Philip's birthday and their brothers. Philip's birthday was yesterday. So back-to-back birthdays.
We're not twins.
Not twins, no. You look nothing alike. But what's hilarious is yesterday I asked David, I said, wait a second, is your birthday today? And David said, no, it's tomorrow. And he said, no, wait, I'm sorry, it's today. I texted him, I'm like, are you sure? Like, you have any idea when your birthday is? He's like, I just forgot what day it was. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, I turned 55, and so I've been like online looking at all the discounts I can get now. I can get like travel discounts, and I'm going to go to MCL cafeteria 3 times a week. I'm telling you.
He started sending us like, because he turned 55, so now he's getting all like the senior discounts and stuff. And now you can move into like a senior community. You could move into like the villages in Florida, right?
Yeah. Yep.
There you go.
Don't think I'm not looking into it. And what's funny is I literally got on YouTube last night. Like, I turned on my TV, I moved my PlayStation upstairs, and I turned on YouTube, and the first video on my feed was what discounts you apply or you qualify for at 55. First video.
Yeah, senior citizen. Yeah. And Philip, you're not 55 yet, Are you?
No, I'm 49.
So you got me beat. I'll be on New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve is my birthday, December 31st. I'll be turning 49. It's crazy.
Yep.
It's really crazy. Oh, man. It's crazy to think how quickly, just think about your kids. Like, oh my God, 15 years old, my son, like you're just thinking like my daughter 9, like, oh my God, like where did that time go? It's just crazy.
My daughter's 19. So it's just like, it's crazy. Like she's just a full on like person.
Yeah.
Not that she was before, she was.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
I'm looking in to see if I can get a discount on gold. I haven't found anything yet.
A discount on gold.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, let me know in the chat room. Like, what are your ages? Let me know. Just curious your ages. Just type in like what numeral, how old you guys are.
Careful, you're going to get labeled an ageist now.
But it's funny, while people are doing that, you were talking about David confusing our birthdays. There's one time my younger brother, we have like rather unique middle names, and my younger brother was arguing with me that my middle name was his middle name. And I'm like, dude, no, it's not. And I was like, I had to like actually get my social security card, take a picture and send it to him and be like, look, dude, just like that is my middle name. That is not your middle name.
He thought he had your middle name. Did he not know his middle name ever?
He did, but I mean, it comes up so seldom. But like he was arguing with me that my middle name was actually his middle name, and that my middle name must then be what his middle name was. And I was like, dude, no. And I was like, where are you getting this nonsense?
So a lot of people here in their 30s and 40s and early 50s or mid 50s. You got 61 years old there, 38 years old, 41, 43. JR says he's 100. I don't believe that. Can you imagine a 100-year-old in a chat room on YouTube?
I mean, I bet Dick Van Dyke still does it.
Most advanced. That would be the most advanced 100-year-old ever.
Yep. I mean, I've seen some videos. There's a couple popular like gaming streamers that are like 80, 90-year-old grandmas playing like Fortnite or Skyrim and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean,
well, that's why it keeps them so young. I mean, that's why it keeps them so young. I mean, the science is in on games. How good it is for your brain. So, in fact, my father-in-law was told by his doctor, because I think he's 70 now, right? I think then the doctor was like, play video games and, to keep your brain sharp. Like, so like playing some Tetris or whatever, it's not like he has to play Fortnite or something, but, so he sat down and played with my son, tried to play some Fortnite with my son. He kind of got destroyed, but you don't have to do that. You could just do like puzzle games, things just like it could be Sudoku for crying out loud. It could just, it doesn't have to, or it could be Balatro. It could be like a poker game. It doesn't have to be like a
guess.
Just thinking like 20 years from now, just think how awesome like retirement home Call of Duty lobbies are going to be. You got like the people that are like retired, have nothing else to do. And you just have these teams of like 6 just freaking 70-year-olds just smashing everybody because they just play nonstop. I mean, it's going to be pretty awesome.
That'd be hilarious. And that'd be hilarious. Like there'll be like a young group and they're going to be like, hey, boomers. And like there's a group of boomers that are like, don't call us boomers. And they just like destroy the young folks. I would love to see that. It'd be hilarious.
Yep.
Oh, man. Or playing Metroid. Yeah, Metroid. That's what I've been playing. Oh boy, Swedish puzzles. Have you seen also too like that? I don't know if you've seen like the data on board games is surging right now. So like tabletop games, there's been crazy with the sort of like the realm of like TikTok and everything. People are like get 30-second videos or 10-second videos on their brain all the time, which is destroying people's brains, by the way, especially young people. And but there's like a rise now for searches for tabletop games, and just like I guess families getting together and playing whatever, like all sorts of great tabletop games. Names of ones that I've never even heard of, but are apparently amazing. Philip, I know you're a fan of some tabletop games.
Oh right? yeah, and I honestly haven't because I haven't had a board gaming group since really after all the lockdown bullshit. So yeah, but yeah, I was like huge into that. Like I spent a lot of time at a place called Guardian Games in Portland, which is like that's what they do. They just all like tabletop games, and you can go in and rent them. They have like a little pub connected to it, and you just go in and like borrow the game and just like play it. You can set up a group and And so I was there all the time, just playing all manner of board games. But yeah, there are such like complicated and just amazing and fun board games out there.
Yeah. And Patrick says reading books helps that too. Yeah, reading, of course, is always great. But they're saying like the hand-eye coordination, the split second decision making that you need to make with hand-eye coordination that's why the surgeons that actually play video games have like a 27% increase in in surgical success rate. Like the numbers are actually pretty crazy. Just for like hand-eye coordination and like the timing of things, being able to manipulate things on a screen, but very quickly, and having to react in real time to things and problem solving at like a very sort of brisk pace is really, really powerful.
Another thing they find works is if you just sit around and try to say emergency use authorization.
They come over to your house and you're just sitting on the couch, like rocking back and forth, like emergency use authorization, emergency use authorization, emergency. I'm like, what is it? What happened to that guy? Oh, Fauci.
It's like show me the blueprints. Show me the blueprints. Show me the blueprints. Do you ever see that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio about the Aviator?
Oh yeah. Where he plays what's his name? Oh my God!
Yeah,
the famous
the plane guy.
Yeah, I just drew a blank too.
And you go play some video games.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, famous. Anybody in the chat room in the Aviator? Who's he
coming
playing?
to me? It's coming to me.
Howard Hughes.
Howard Hughes.
Yes.
That's right, yeah. Lincoln Logs. Yeah.
Yep.
Matt F. Music says, leave it to a TV show to tell normies that D&D is cool. Yeah, but D&D, the thing with D&D is like it's now gone off the woke bandwagon, like woke deep end. Like if you go back to like 1980s, like D&D style stuff, like that artwork was like badass. You got like, Hercules style guys and all that kind of stuff. And now it's like they've got like a purple haired liberal, like in like a wheel. I mean, it's like, what the hell happened? So like a lot of people who were like purists back in the day have moved on to, there's like a couple of other ones now that are like pure.
But yeah, it was funny because I grew up in kind of a smaller town. I mean, the population was only like, I think like 3,200. And so like there was definitely a lot of Dungeons and Dragons playing, but it wasn't just like this is like in the 90s, before it had such popularity, but it wasn't seen as like a nerd thing to do because like there wasn't enough stuff to do. So that was just a common thing that you just have like all kinds of mixed groups playing Dungeons and Dragons because you'd have like the football players and the band geeks all playing it because what else are you going to do? Go sit in a cornfield? That's like
optogenics. Just trying to look this up, what someone said in the chat room here. Optogenics is... I don't know. Someone said video games are optogenics or optogenetics. It's a technique that allows scientists to control specific brain cells with light. They genetically modify neurons. I'm not sure exactly what that has to do with video games, but I guess just using your brain. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, we are a bunch of nerds. Happy to be, I mean, I grew up, the thing is my dad brought Pong home when I was a little kid, in the late 70s. And I used to sit on his lap while he was like, he had one of the first computers ever in our neighborhood. And he was like building databases because he ran like meat distribution up and down like grocery stores along the East Coast. And so he was learning how to write basic code on this machine, on this giant computer. I mean, it was so freaking heavy. And so I used to sit here while he like was writing basic code and basic programming and like learned that in the early 1980s, So I became obsessed with like technology and stuff like that back in the day. But it's like anything, like balance, like if you're doing it 10 hours a day, of course that's not good. Anything you do in your, but good balance. So you want to take a break. You've been working hard, you've been working hard all day. Play an hour.
The computers back then, like what was it? The HP 486K or something like that. 486 kilobits of storage. Like compared to
I had 2
now.
I had 2 megabytes at one point. Like my first PC had 2 megabytes.
That's crazy.
I could rock at least a game.
And now on a phone, you
get
2 terabytes. on a phone.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my dad's computer, I don't even know. It was just like all like a green screen, you know, and with the the flashing little cursor, and he could like write code where he could like make a little duck. He like coded so like a duck would move across the screen, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world.
Like, I remember we had one that I don't remember. Because I was pretty young at the time. David might remember. I don't remember what make and model it was, but like we saved things onto cassette tape, and so we just had a bunch of cassette tapes. Of,
wasn't that the
like,
TRS-80? The
Radio Shack, the TRS-80 with a tape drive, and we had one.
Yep, we had one too.
Yeah, I think we had one too.
I used to go to my friend Todd's and play, and I remember like you'd have these games, and you'd have to type in like pick up knife, go to open door.
Oh yeah,
things like that.
Text-based RPGs, man.
Mm-hmm.
Zork just went open source.
Yeah,
I don't even know what that means.
Man, someone in the chat said Lunar Lander. Yeah, they just re-released Lunar Lander. You can get it on like an Atari collection now for the Nintendo Switch. And there's like a new Lunar Lander that just came out too, as well. Atari's kind of back. They've been doing some really cool stuff, like some new games, and they've been re-releasing some of their old like 2600 consoles with like an HDMI input now, so it'll play your old cartridges if you still have those. Oh, wow. I don't, unfortunately, but you can. It comes like pre-stocked, I think, with a whole bunch of games, but you can also use your old cartridges in it. Like perfect little Christmas present for someone, an old.
I wouldn't mind.
Gamer.
I wouldn't mind going back and getting the Atari game G.I. Joe and seeing if now I could figure out what the hell I was doing in it, because I could never figure out what the point of that game was.
Well, there was a lot of games like that on the 2600, like E.T., one of the...
Oh, yeah. I had that. I got that for Christmas one year. My aunt got it for me for Christmas, and I played it the night she got it for me, and I think that was the only time I ever played it.
Yeah, because people are like, what the heck is going on with this game? And then famously, they took as many of the extra cartridges as possible, and they buried them in like a big in a California landfill.
Yeah,
and then
there's a documentary on that.
There's a documentary. Yeah, someone went and like found that landfill and found all those old ET cartridges, like all the old 2600 ET cartridges.
That's
such
funny.
Cool.
My favorite game, and one that I was really, really good at. Well, there were two. There was one called Kaboom. I don't know if you remember that one. And they had the controller with the dial wheel on it. Yeah. I was so good at that game. And then also Pitfall.
Oh, yeah, Pitfall.
That
I was good at that, too. Yeah. You remember the game Adventure for the 2600? That was, if you've ever seen, if you've ever read...
That's the one with the... No, that was
like a dragon. There's like there's a bunch of keys and a dragon.
That was in television.
Yeah, but they ported it to the 2600 as well. That's where I played it.
I've got the Intellivision, and I've got that game.
Wow. It's a classic. But if you've ever read, one of my favorite books of all time is Ready Player One. If you've ever read Ready Player One by Ernie Klein.
The movie's good, too. They did a really good job on the movie.
See, I didn't think so. I
thought didn't like it? I
no.
If you read the book, go read the book, and then you'll go read the book, and then watch the movie, and you'll be like, what the hell? No, the only thing they got right in the movie was the name of the movie is Ready Player One. Other than that, they didn't really get anything right.
Okay, so as somebody who didn't read the book, the movie was great, but maybe not the other way around. So
yeah, no, it was an excellent, but one of my favorites. It's so enjoyable. But at the heart of it, is the game Adventure. He kind of builds the story around that old Atari game, and it's really cool. And I was like, oh my God, I still love that game. I was obsessed with trying to get the keys, and before the dragon would come through the wall, and it was so much fun. Yeah. Yeah, there's a new, I don't know if you've seen that new Marvel Cosmic Invasion. That's like a side-scrolling beat 'em up, which looks pretty damn awesome. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Also, by the way, I should mention I do have a whole other gaming channel. On YouTube, it's just called Clayton Morris, and that's where I just kind of hang out and talk about this kind of stuff once a week, because you got to take your mind off the world sometimes. So I like to kind of come over there and do that a couple times a week if I can. So if you feel into it, come on over there and subscribe to me if you're into that kind of talk.
Yeah, I can. Pretty sure you and I have a conversation at least once a week about video games. At least once a week.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for them to release a Q*bert first-person shooter.
Just as he hops around. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be such a disorienting game to be playing in first person.
I met the creator of Q*bert when I was at the in Pasadena at the Retro Gaming Expo in Pasadena. He was there. It's actually kind of
that was one of my all-time favorites. Like I would go to the arcade and I would just sit at the Q*bert game and then it came out I think on ColecoVision, and I dominated that game. I loved that game.
Dan said, Clayton, why don't you invite Dave for a co-op game stream? Well, see, the thing is, myself, David, Philip, and Grim, who all four of us, you hear our voices right now, we have a Helldivers group, Helldivers 2. We get together. Yeah. We haven't done it in a little while. You guys did, but we haven't, since I moved, I haven't done it.
Well, Grim didn't join us. Grim ditched us, so it's just been Philip and I going out and keeping our reputation alive.
Yeah.
Yep. Managing democracy.
That's right. Oh, all right. Well, I've got I'm playing Metroid Prime 4 Beyond right now. And I've got, my thoughts have changed on the game a little bit. So I'm going to do a video on that in the next few days once I complete it. So I'll tell you my thoughts on that. But thank you guys for hanging out on this Monday after the show. This is our after the show. And we'll be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time live. We've got some great guests lined up for you for the rest of the week. So we will be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Thank you guys for subscribing. Thanks for being a part of our community here. Much love to all of you. Stay safe and keep defending democracy. We'll see you. Bye, everyone.